Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about the bizarre French body horror film Titane from 2021. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
Alex Getter, my friend.
What's up, man?
We just had our church of whatever the fuck that was prior to pressing record, but
We've had like 3 sips of beer, and we're already getting philosophical.
yeah, it's going to be a long night. Other than existential dread, what you been up to, dude?
This will be the second episode in a row that I'm giving a post-concert report. I feel like I barely talked to you about this.
No.
I saw Elton John last week.
Correct. Supposedly his last tour.
The last 3 times I saw him were also his last tour. He made sure to hit Ohio about 7 times. He's like 75 years old, and he just has so much energy. His voice still has so much power. 2.5-hour set list, like all the hits. It was fantastic, man.
Do you think any drugs are involved with that type of energy?
I don't know. Have you ever seen the biopic they made about him? The Rocket Man movie?
With the guy from The Kingsman?
Yeah.
I have not seen it, but I've heard of it, yes.
That movie kind of covers his like drug use and stuff in the in the 70s, and he had to get sober or else he would die. So I don't know what he does now. He just seems like a really polite and nice fellow.
Maybe he's yeah, excuse me. That's a Le Fin du Monde burp. For those that are curious, we're drinking the infamous Le Fin.
Had to bring it in for the French movie, of course.
Of course. Maybe he's just trying to do it till the wheels fall off type of thing.
I guess so. He made a comment at the end of the show, and he's like, "This is my last tour. I need to go spend time with my family." And I'm like, dude, you're 75. Like, you're doing like 150 dates a year. Like, you're insane.
You know, doing stuff like that gives him a reason to keep on kicking, you know.
That's true.
So I guess I'll figure it out when I'm 75 whether or not I want to live or die. So that's awesome, though. You've seen him a few times, correct? Like, that wasn't your first time.
It was like my 4th time I've seen him.
Good shows every time?
Every time.
He did a Dua Lipa thing at the end?
Yeah, it was like part of his encore. It just, they showed like Dua Lipa on the screen, like during her parts. Wasn't super intrigued by that song, if I'm being honest.
I would have rather had something else at the ending.
Yeah.
As far as me, I'm gonna turn 23 in a couple hours. You know, we're recording this on the 19th. My birthday's 420 for
Mr. 420.
y'all that are curious. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the. I'm sure I have, but yeah, Mr. 420, Mr. Columbine, Mr.
Hitler's birthday.
Hitler Youth.
I think we brought all this up like last year when it was your birthday.
I'm sure.
It's a special date.
It is a special day for a special boy.
And what a way to ring in your birthday, you know, doing the podcast like this.
Yeah, it's the only way. You know, I'd rather do this than go out to dinner with a bunch of fucking shitty old people for my birthday, you know. Oh, speaking of that, you know, I'm going to spend my weekend. I've got to work tomorrow on my birthday. You know, no big deal. Just another day in fucking paradise. And then Saturday, I'm going to go see Tim Dillon stand-up comedy at the Taft Theater in Cincy. I'm hyped for that. Sunday, I'm going to see The Northman with you and my brother, which I'm really hyped.
Very excited.
We're going to get to see Robert Eggers with more budget. You know, Sunday night after we see it, we'll probably come back here and just kind of jot down our thoughts on the mics and give it a little something. Speaking of crazy existential bullshit, we're doing a really weird movie tonight.
We are. We're doing the new Julia Ducournau movie. Came out last year. It's called Titane.
Yeah, something like that.
I think I pronounced it about 6 different ways over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, it's a wild ride.
We're going to refer to it as the girl that fucks the car movie.
That's what it's like become known as. But after watching it a few times, it's like so much more than that.
Okay, so I've only seen the movie once, and we're going to dive deep because I already psychoanalyzed the shit out of it in my own head. I had a hard time falling asleep last night. I'll just put it that way.
I bet.
You know, just based off that first watch, I thought it was like, you know, you had mentioned to me that, hey, that first hour is like kind of wild. And after that, it kind of turns into something else. You know, I've seen people talk about this film, like on YouTube and, different analysis of it.
This is one of those rare foreign movies that has generated buzz in the United States.
It's kind of like similar to Parasite, and man, I really wish Another Round kind of got that breakthrough. It didn't get it. I'm surprised it didn't get any like Oscar buzz.
Another Round? Or
Yeah.
this? It won Best Foreign Movie.
What?
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
Swear to God it did. Well deserved, too.
Was it during the pandemic?
It might have been. We reviewed it during the pandemic. So.
Well, fuck. Was it one of the... It was probably like the virtual Oscars event.
Yeah. The one that like nobody watched.
No one fucking cared about.
That entire span of time is like a big blur to me.
Okay. First off, I want to commend you for, like, I don't want to forget this. You were like, you've broken into it with this movie. You're into foreign movies now, which is fun to me.
It's awesome.
While watching the film, the fact that it was in French, just like right over my head, didn't even fucking care. Like,
No, me neither.
It was very much a seamless process. Usually I go into a film thinking, this is a foreign film, I'm going to have to read subtitles, kind of thing.
I think the story and the concept itself was so captivating that I didn't care at all.
I will say I had excitement while watching it the first time, but it was like immediately like kind of subdued after watching this bitch go hard in the paint. The first 15 minutes. So when I first tried to watch it, I watched it at night, and it was really late. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I watched it right before bed. And I knew, I was like, I got to turn this off. I'm so tired. Like, this is nuts for me right now.
Do you remember what part you got to before?
I literally got to where she fucks the car.
You're like, this is too much.
I was like, I can't. Like, I know. Well, I was watching it, and I'm like, okay, ha ha ha, she's fucking a car, but like there's more here and I'm too tired to think. Like I knew that I was gonna have to keep thinking, and I'm like sitting there like laying down, like I don't have the brain capacity to like analyze the shit out of this right now. So I just turned it off and watched it the following evening.
Probably a smart move.
But it was at the scene where right after that she has bruises on her vagina and shit from fucking the car. And then the bullshit with her dad. And we'll get there. Speaking of which, I really loved the way this film opened.
The prologue?
Yes. Like, I thought that was, like, really... It served a great purpose.
It did.
We get to find out a lot about the character through this, like, small... There's no dialogue. Well, at least on her part.
Hardly.
She's, like, making car noises, which... Goddamn, we're gonna really dive in here.
There's a lot to dissect.
It's like the shit with her dad I found really compelling as an opening scene, because you get to know a lot about the characters just from this small interaction, which like any child and any parent can like empathize with, where you're looking at a parent that's super fucking annoyed by the kid in the back seat and the kid in the back seat that's bored out of their fucking mind. And I'm like, oh, this is like classic setup.
To me, it seemed like he had like kind of a animosity towards her that extended outside of just being annoyed. And that's kind of explored in the brief scenes that you get with them together as adults. I kind of have a lot of questions regarding their relationship, even though you get very little of it. I can't tell if Alexia is a shitty human being before her accident, or if like the dad had some part in like traumatizing her or like being a cold parent. Like I have no idea.
Kind of raises the questions where, yes, is there something before that happened, or is it just, is she a shitty human being? Because obviously it carries out through the rest of the film. It raises the question of where, is this a parent that's already given up on the child, and does that help push the plot forward with her coldness and brutality, or is it like a nature thing where she was born as like this fucked up individual?
Yeah.
Which is very well could be the case, like who was it, like Ed Gein?
Is this the chainsaw
massacre
guy?
Not Ed Gein.
Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer. His parents were normal as fuck. God-fearing adult like parents and shit, and he just turned out to be this super fucked up guy. And, that raises the question of like
nature versus nurture
of a serial killer,
Yeah.
which I'll have my criticisms with that and we'll get there, but I found like this extremely interesting with the motif of the titanium plate and it being very important, obviously. I couldn't tell Does she have an infatuation with vehicles to begin with? Because the opening scene is her humming the car noises. Is she interested in cars at this point? Is she doing this to get a rise out of her father? You know, it kind of raises that question. They get into a wreck because she takes off her seatbelt to annoy the shit out of her dad. And then they get in the wreck, but she comes out of the hospital with a titanium plate. Is the titanium plate...
Is that what brings her closer to the car? I have no idea.
These are the perfect movies for podcasts. Well... You know, because right after they leave the hospital, first thing she does is come up to the car and touch the metal that lines the driver window and like gives the car a hug and a kiss. Which, you know, maybe she's a weird fucking kid, and you know, maybe the father distanced himself because of that reason. Is this her first time doing that type of thing?
God, this is a weird fucking movie.
Yeah, it is.
Like in the best ways.
After the scene, it opens up into the weird...
The car show. I really love this scene. Did you notice that when she's walking into the building, it's like a really long tracking shot that never cuts?
Yes.
There's some really nice camera work here where it's like showing you the inside of all the car engines and it's like panning around to show you the showgirls.
This is a great way of demonstrating kind of like the sexualization of vehicles. You know, I'm not really that car guy, but I know people that are. It's just a thing, dude. Like, it raises the question of, do men sexualize vehicles, and why, and what gives them the ability to, like, kind of allow that environment to come up? I mean, we talk about commercialization or like capitalism and the way that things are sold to the public, like very consumer-esque, where you can have a great way to sell a car could be, you know, putting a hot lady next to it. And I don't think it's apparent now compared to maybe like in the 70s or the 80s where like that kind of was the thing.
Yeah, it's definitely less now.
You know, because I feel like now vehicles are more oriented towards, they show the purpose. Like if you ever watch a new car ad, it's like a Jeep ad, for example. You know, it may have an off-roading thing, or they may play on, you know, if it's a Jeep Grand Cherokee, if it's more of a family-oriented vehicle, it may show a little bit more of luxury and put-together family. If you watch a sports car, it may contain like a very well put-together Matthew McConaughey, or the way it's sold is very interesting. And I think it's funny because Elizabeth's dad, he works on cars, and he's definitely has embodied the 70s and 80s mentality.
He's still living it today.
He carries that shit around. Calendars of women and like, you know, all that shit.
Oh my God.
We were cleaning out their basement one time and I went through like all that shit with him and it was so fucking funny. But tying back to the scene, these men, a way for them to like make it okay or like sexualize these vehicles is to have women dancing on top of them and near them, which I found an interesting commentary.
It might have something to do with language as well, because in other countries, the U.S. doesn't really do this, but they assign like gender pronouns to certain words. Like they might say like la car or lay car. Like la might mean masculine, and there would be like a feminine version of the word. And cars in France, I believe, are called lay car to like showcase a feminine characteristic of it.
I think that's vice versa, but yes.
Well, yeah,
La.
okay.
La is female, lay.
Okay, I'm thinking back to like my Spanish years, and I think it's like the inverse there.
Yes. El Niño and La Niña.
And people that have like that are into cars always name them after a woman. Like,
my car's name is Veronica, yes.
Did you really name your car Veronica?
Yeah, her name's Veronica. She's a dirty bitch.
See, look at you.
Inside and out.
You haven't made any moves on it, though?
Nah. Hey, great costume design. And I mean the jacket, not the skimpy outfit. I thought the jacket was dope as fuck. I want one.
Yeah, it was. Her dance on the car is like so provocative and like sexualized. Really, this whole movie, it kind of like comments on sexuality.
I will say in the first about 15 to 20 minutes, I found it kind of off-putting. I kind of got really desensitized to it. I mean that in a positive way, where I don't think it was a negative thing. You know, moving throughout the rest of these earlier scenes, we get to see, you know, women naked in the showers, like the dancers. It's almost like a strip club. I didn't find it distasteful after that point.
Neither did I.
At first, I thought like, oh God, like this is like a little much for me. You know, once we got later into the film, our main character Alexia naked multiple times. It didn't come off in the way that I thought it would later in the film. It does have like this metamorphosis from what you originally are thinking, and it completely puts that shit on its head. And
I feel the same way. I really do like the way that nudity was handled, because it is a metamorphosis in that in the beginning it is very sexualized, and like you're looking at these women like they're like a slab of meat basically. And then
that's a good way to put it.
And then later in the movie, they start to use the nudity as like a body horror element to where you're like grossed out by it. Did you look up a bunch of stuff about this movie before you watched it? Like, did you spoil anything for yourself or anything like that?
I had thought it was something else. I had no idea about the killing aspect.
Same.
Like, her being the serial killer was like, whoa to me. You know, her first killing was like a big shock to me. And I knew it was coming because I saw the way the shot was being set up, and I saw the nature of these characters moving through the scene. And when it happened, I was like, oh, this is something else. This is not what I thought it was, because I had gone into it knowing, like, obviously, she fucks the car, and I knew it has a transformation into something deeper at the end, but I didn't know that the main character was a serial killer, and that like really bothered me. And I don't mean like not in a negative way, but
it made you uncomfortable.
It made me look at the movie a lot differently than I thought I was going to come out of it. You know, I thought she was going to be obviously a fucked up individual just based off that opening scene, but I didn't think it was like something so sinister or cold. We can talk about it. That, you know, she's like getting fans.
Yeah, I kind of got the vibe that like from that dancing scene, the way, I hate saying this, but the way she's so good at it.
Yeah, it's great.
She clearly like is the standout model among this group of people. And it would make sense that a bunch of men would like want autographs from her and stuff, but I wasn't expecting it to that level. Now, getting back to the serial killer thing, when she goes back to the car and that stalker is like walking after her,
the obsessed fan,
I kind of felt like this first murder was almost like semi-justified, semi-justified, because he does like force himself on her.
Correct.
Now, when that scene happened, I went, oh, like this might be a promising young woman meets Kill Bill type thing where she's like murdering men that like...
I almost completely forgot about Promising Young Woman.
So did I. I really liked that movie too.
That's been a long time.
But of course, like the scenes that follow this like completely break that notion. This movie like actually subverted my expectations like many times during that first watch. Like I was thinking, okay, she fucks the car. This will be like kind of a campy B-movie concept and we can like meme it up and everything. And it was not like that whatsoever. But I'm glad that it wasn't.
Yeah, I thought I was going to come into this just like fucking cracking jokes left and right. Where I was going to be like, ha 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 ha. Fucking my Borat impression somewhere in here. But dude, this shit like fucking... Dude, I turned away many a time. Like, you know me. I literally texted you during my viewing like, what the fuck? Why? Like, Christ...
You texted me the word Christ about like 7 times in a row.
Jesus Christ,
like,
dude.
We weren't having a conversation. You would just say Christ, and I'd be like, yeah, dude, I know. And then you'd say Christ.
Did you know? I figured you had seen the movie enough where you were figuring out where I was. I had my first Christ moment where she fucking stabs him in the ear with her like chopstick hair tie. Something that I thought was absolutely horrific was not that he got stabbed in the ear. It was the foaming of the mouth, which is like a motif that gets thrown out later on. But it like the choice to choose that for the death of these victims was...
It's more gross than blood.
Yeah. And it's very uncomfortable because there's an active choice to let the viewer see the entire suffering of these. It's like, that's what fucks me up. I can do the... Oh, fuck. God damn, this shit's so fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
I can do the, okay, she's killing somebody, but I can't do the, let me see it all.
Like vomiting and foaming of the mouth type stuff like grosses me out way more than somebody getting their head cut off or something along those lines. I was actually more grossed out by her hair getting stuck in the girl's nipple ring in the next scene.
Hey, we're going to talk about the nipple ring girl. The poor nipple girl.
So this woman... The character's name is Justine, and this actress played the main character in Julia Ducournau's previous movie, Raw.
Which you've seen, correct?
I have. And it was pretty good. Kind of was feeling iffy on it right after I watched it. And the more time I had to chew on it, like I started to think like, yeah, okay, that was like a really interesting experience. But that same actress plays Justine in this movie. Her character in Raw was also named Justine. I don't think there's like any relation. The names Alexi and Adrian are used in Raw as well. It's almost the exact same character names. The way the scenes play out with Justine are very strange. Their first interaction is really negative because she yanks the hair out of her nipple ring. But then like it shows them like basically on a date in the next scene.
I found this very odd. It kind of raises the question of how sexually fluent this woman is. Also, maybe the nature surrounding her job and the type of people she interacts with. One thing that I don't want to gloss over is that she fucks the car.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the way it was portrayed in the movie?
I found this very odd, and I don't you have to suspend your disbelief in a way, first off.
Well, of course.
And I don't think that's a negative thing, but I want to understand more about how and why, or what this is, if there is a purpose, what is it symbolizing? Because, she just gets done murdering this dude and she's in the shower. And my immediate thought is, well, okay, did anybody see it? And is there anybody else there in the showers? The end of the night has already been wrapped up. Everybody's showering, going home. Fans are waiting outside the venue for autographs and all that bullshit. Kills a dude, goes back inside. The banging on the metal door while she's showering.
I was confused by this as well.
I don't know if it just serves as a thing to move the plot forward and like kind of to tie a loop on at the end, or in like to make her pregnant. But I don't know if it serves a purpose of. I want to know how and why. Is the car a dude?
Like just what it stands for.
Like how does the car bang on the door? I wanted to see like a tire roll away, like hitting the door, like tires were hitting the door or something. Like I'm like that car would damage itself if it's knocking on the door. I will say the actual portrayal of the car fucking was done well, and I didn't think ever those words would ever leave my mouth, but they did.
It's a brand new sentence. Those words were never put together. I think I get it in a way.
Okay.
I think it has something to do with Alexia, and it ties back to her parents as well. She's never really known a loving relationship. She feels very cold, and the whole like titanium thing, it makes her less human. I think that she has an attraction to an object that's metal, not only because she is part metal, but because she doesn't find anything worth of value out of like human relationships. So like a car is like the only thing she would go to. And I kind of saw like the banging on the walls as kind of a way like symbolizing after she murdered this man, she needs a sense of comfort, and the car was the thing that gave it to her.
Look at you.
Now it's not supposed to be taken literally.
Okay.
Honestly, and this is kind of a critique of mine, I almost feel like the whole car thing is completely... It feels so disconnected from everything else in the movie where like it almost doesn't add a whole lot.
Okay.
Like it feels like the gimmick that sells the movie is her fucking the car.
Okay.
But it really doesn't matter that much.
That's a great point to bring up. The shock value is that she fucks the car, but there's more than the car fucking. Literally, prior to watching the film, I knew that a lady fucks a car, and like that is a way to kind of rope in. God, it's fucking genius.
That's why I recommended the movie, and it makes up about 2% of the plot.
Okay. I think I understand now.
Yeah.
To me, I think I wanted a little bit more of like, is the car, like if the car is going to be personified, does the car represent a little bit more than just her fucking the car? I know, I obviously understood like the car is a source of comfort, but I wanted it to be a little bit more of a...
It's just because she's...
straightforward thing.
Just because she's inhuman, she has to go to like an inanimate object to be able to feel comfort. And that's kind of the same reason why she bites Justine's nipple ring, and she's not interested in the woman.
I want to talk about that, but I'm literally about to leak my own oil here, so...
Same.
Piss break. Alrighty, after another 10-hour fucking session between you and I... off air.
We really just did a full podcast worth of material on our job.
It's been a long couple of weeks. Let's just say that.
Couple of years, really.
Yeah, that too. This is honestly one of my favorite scenes that's very small. And I think it says a lot, and it has a lot. I think it ties a lot back into the first prologue scene where, she's waking up. I will say the way this fucking shot opens up, we didn't really talk about it too much, but the whole erotica nature of the car sex scene, I found, honestly, it was framed really well.
It was done as tastefully as it could have been, really.
And that's saying a lot.
In this vague art house kind of way. But I agree. The scene with the family is one of my favorite parts of the movie too. Is that what you're referring to?
The scene opens up with like literally just a crotch shot, and I'm like, well, okay. And that was like one of those moments where I was like, that's a little much for me. Like, it's not really necessary.
Raw did this as well.
In what aspects? Like just the crotch shots?
Opening a scene with like a close-up view of somebody's panties. Like basically, I think that movie had a Brazilian wax scene, if you know what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I think when she's watching the news, usually in other movies, like them watching a news forecast is like not that relevant to the plot. But I think you can actually get a lot of information out of what they show on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm. I will say the way the shot opens up and like she like goes out into the kitchen. She's like eating on the couch. The dad walks in, doesn't say a word. She doesn't say a word. He brings home food and groceries of some sort. She grabs the food and sits back down on the couch, and he sits at the table and eats the food.
Very close-up shot on his face when this is happening.
I like the way this is framed because left side is him and the wall that divides the kitchen and like the dining area into the living room. It's not an open floor plan for you architects out there. Off to his right is the news broadcast on the TV. It's not like perfect either as far as like the angles of the shot where the TV's like kind of slanted, and it kind of bothered me a lot.
Is it the way they like probably CGI'd this newscast onto the TV? It was kind of weird.
It was more like the perspective of the camera. Like you're very close up on his face. It's not like over the top. It's almost kind of fisheye lens in a way where like the TV was kind of like unparalleled to the bottom of the frame, which like bothered the fuck out of me because there's like not a lot going on. In the back, it's kind of like there's the depth of field as well, where like the shot is focused on his face, but the whole 50% of the rest of the screen is a like, blurred out news broadcast. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but it is something I noticed. I mean, it's very intentional. I feel like I wasn't even paying attention to his face, though. I was paying attention to that negative space of the news broadcast.
See, I think you were supposed to be watching his face, because he's displaying a rather large amount of contempt for even sharing this room with his daughter. That's what I got out of it, at least. I didn't pay attention to the negative space.
No, I was paying attention to the negative space because of the audio cue of the news broadcast. Like my eye was brought to the right instead of like paying attention to him. I knew he was there, but all I could think about was that teleprompter, the news broadcaster just reading off this giant statement about a serial killer. But we get brought back to... She knows she's the serial killer, dude.
Yeah, it doesn't explicitly say it, but it's mentioning like 4-ish victims, and the movie never explicitly says that it's her, but it strongly insinuates that she is a serial killer. But you wouldn't know that at this point yet. The first murder with the stalker guy was all... You would think it was brought along because he forced himself on her. We'll find out in the next scene that that's not exactly the case.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there because I knew going into that scene that like after it's the police are still questioning and investigating, is this a serial killer? It's 4 murders in a year. And I'm thinking, okay, when she killed that guy, it wasn't like some intense scene on her behalf.
Yeah.
She didn't show like an emotional... I knew she was the serial killer because the way she killed the dude, he forced herself upon her, but she like was reluctant to kiss him back. And she has a decision. I'm going to kiss this dude and I'm going to catch him off guard. And I was like, she's going to kill this guy right here. I knew. I was like, the way this shot's framed, it's through basically the windshield, looking through the driver's side window. I'm like, this scene is set up for her to kill this fucking guy right now. And I was like, what's the weapon? There it is, in her fucking hair. Because I believe we've already got like a shot of her putting her hair up for the dance and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is a motif. This is going to be something that is important. And she stabs the dude in the fucking ear. And I'm like, this ain't her first time doing this shit. I'm like, that's a very... How do they determine the difference between manslaughter and murder?
Intentions.
Yeah, or premeditated. Her choosing to use that was like, nah, she's done that shit before. Like, that's her crutch.
It probably doesn't help that the first time I watched this movie was directly after you left my house last time we recorded the podcast.
You watched it right after?
I think I kind of talked to you about it the next day at work, but I watched the first hour and 20 minutes that night, and I was kind of drunk.
Yeah. We moved past that scene. It's kind of like unimportant, but we do get more into...
Well, it gives you the hint of the missing boy on the newscast as well, and that plays like a really big part in the second half of the film. But yes, we can move into the...
Oh my God, I almost completely forgot about that.
It's like two movies, really. I mean, this movie is split directly in half almost.
Mm-hmm. The girl with the nipples. Well, I think all girls have nipples, but at least when they're born. The girl with the nipple piercing. God damn, dude. Like, Jesus Christ, take a goddamn hint.
This was one of the most disturbing things in the movie for me. And I don't know how they did this, like, movie-making wise. It wasn't like a prosthetic where she's biting the nipple ring. Like, it felt like she was literally biting this actor.
Ah, fuck.
Yeah.
God damn. It looked like her nipple was about to come off. Like she was about to like sever the skin. And like, look, this wasn't a thing where as a viewer, I was like deriving pleasure at this point. I was like, how is this going to go wrong? Because I knew what she was capable of, because it's already been set up to us that like anytime any sort of human sexualization comes into play, like this character is not going to react and behave in the same way that a normal person would. Like it's going to become this sort of fucked up thing that happens, and it does. And like you get that with like she kills the dude via, chopstick in the ear. She already had ripped the hair out of the nipple ring.
Yeah.
I was like, this girl does not give a fuck. I found this very odd. I know it's not like set up in a way where like they have some sort of relation. I think maybe just the structure of the, their work environment and all this bullshit just lend themselves to be a little bit more free-spirited with each other.
Yeah, sexually like promiscuous. Or this is also the first scene where you kind of see that she's pregnant. She throws up into the beach or like in the ocean, and she feels down under, and she puts her hand up to the camera, and she's got motor oil on it. This is wild.
I will say, like, later throughout the film, the motor oil becomes less of a shock value to me and is more of a humanitarian display. And I know that's weird and it's far-fetched, but we'll get there.
It still managed to gross me out quite a bit. I'm not going to lie.
No, I'm not saying it was, like, I felt some sort of warm, fuzzy feeling inside me, but...
Mother Nature. Beautiful.
But I did find, obviously at first, it's like very off-putting.
For sure.
It's like such a genre blend all around where like you don't really understand where the film's going to go at certain points. And it does have like a lot of shock value throughout.
Certainly.
Yes, you get to find out she's pregnant via the motor oil. And I think directly following this, she literally almost rips this girl's nipple off. She runs away and, throws up in like the port area. She's puking out right into the water. Right after this, they go back to wherever this other girl lives, and it looks like she shares a house with multiple roommates.
We don't know that at first, though.
No.
It kind of comes into play in real time. I'm surprised that Justine would bring this girl back with her after what happened already.
Damn near ripping her nipple off.
I want to say that this apartment scene is like a highlight for me, even though I feel like it feels so disconnected from everything else in the movie, tone-wise and like in the actions of characters. It is a highlight, and it's very exciting what occurs in this scene.
Speak for yourself. I thought... Now, this was like my moment of saying Christ. Like, I texted you multiple times where I was like, holy shit, why?
You weren't expecting this level of violence, were you?
Again, I've seen analysis of the film, and obviously those videos have to use footage from the film. And I've seen the struggle on the couch before, and I thought that was it. Like, I thought, like...
It's only the beginning.
I knew she was going to kill this girl. Like, I just felt bad that this girl has to die.
I felt bad too. Justine felt like a nice lady.
A nice lady with nipple piercings.
Yeah.
And that's my type of gal. And I hate to see people like that get murdered. And the poor naked black boy and the poor underwear white dude. God damn.
This is so brutal.
Dude, I had to turn away. I had to.
Really?
At that point. Like, the girl getting killed on the couch, I watched that shit. It was nowhere near what I expected because it happened relatively fast. God damn. Like, fucking Christ. Like, this was some Tarantino violence.
I'm glad that you brought this up. The entire tone of the scene felt Tarantino-esque to me because when that Italian song kicks in,
yeah,
and like it's like this strummy Western acoustic guitar, it kind of feels like the movie wants you to have fun during this scene.
I did not have fun.
Now, the context is different because when we laugh and have this positive reaction to Tarantino violence, it's usually in the context of you're seeing gangsters and Nazis and slavers be murdered. But in this movie, it's like these people that did nothing. And our main character, who's like completely unsympathetic and despicable, is murdering these people that did nothing.
Yeah.
And the movie is portraying it in a fun way.
I think it's a little bit tone deaf, especially since you put it that way. Because, correct, in Tarantino films with that over-the-top violence, it feels like deserved and warranted and like almost victorious in a way and like in pleasure for the audience. Like in Kill Bill, she rips the girl's fucking eye out. And it's like, yeah, fuck that bitch. Or, you know, Django shooting people up in the fucking plantation home. Like, that's a well-deserved. We've got to this like hyper violence where it's like you're on that main character's side. But in this film, it's like our main character is kind of a piece of shit.
There's like no kind of about it.
It's like rooting for the Zodiac killer. I mean, it's like you don't want to. I think the most disturbing part about the film for me, outside of the body horror, she kills the kid with the goddamn stool. Like, I was watching the film with headphones on. I had to take them off because I knew what was coming. I was like, there's no way they're going to show this. I mean, I knew that going into the way the camera work. I mean, it's one of these long shots, like the shot is pointed at her on the couch, and in the backdrop is somebody walking down the stairs.
It doesn't cut, does it?
Long take. And
that's great.
It comes from underneath her holding the
fireplace.
Poker. Yep, the fireplace poker, stabs the kid in the foot, and uses the stool to like break his jaw and like sever his head. And I was like, there's no way they're going to show this. I'm glad they're not going to show it, but I have to take my headphones off because I know there's going to be a disgusting audio cue crunch of killing this dude, and I can't hear it. I was like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I cannot fathom listening to this shit.
I think the movie is trying to elicit like a comedic reaction out of the audience. And this might be because it is a French movie and like you would laugh at the audacity of it. And normally I usually would.
Yes.
But I didn't. Now
That's saying something.
I know. Now, when she goes upstairs and she's trying to get the girl out of the bathroom and that bicker guy comes out, she asked him, how many people live in this house? And I did get a laugh out of this because he lists all the people and he says, why? Is anyone else coming over? And she says, like, I hope not. Like, that's kind of funny. But outside of that, like, the actual actions that occur in this scene are, like, despicable. And you want that last girl to kind of get away.
Oh, for sure. I felt bad. Her struggle, I was more inside the head of the victim at this point because I think that whole scene was really getting an idea of what our main character, Alexia, and her mindset and her actions being displayed to you in a way that you're getting to know her character. And the way the ending of the shot is the struggle between her and some innocent victim and the victim getting away. I think, you can have that comedic, or at least attempt to have that comedic relief of hyper-violence and, via over-the-top violence and the soundtrack being kind of like, oh, let's do this shit, like Happy Go Get 'Em or Western bullshit. But watching this victim scram away, it really starts to, you come back to that, oh, this is a extremely flawed person. Like watching the fear in this actress's eyes where I thought like, I didn't know if she was going to get away. Like this struggle was really really intense. And it's, again, a long take on the staircase.
It's super physical.
I found if you watch the film again, which I didn't, but I know I can reference later on when we get introduced to Vincent and stuff, the physicality between the two females is a lot different than the two males, which I found like a great inverse later on throughout the film, where we have like a roided up character, like this older man, which we'll get there. That shit is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And we have this less physical female where it's very even on that staircase. I kind of like later on throughout the film, she's more of like becoming like this tamed animal.
Yeah.
In a way where she like she's being met on a physical level by somebody that can handle that and handle that craziness. And we can comment on that later, but she fucking sets his house on fire, dude. Like that shit's insane. I didn't know this was the same scene when we come into it, because the one girl gets away and we're immediately cut into like...
She's in a garage of some sorts. This is her parents' house. It's not the same apartment.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, she kills her parents.
Oh, fuck. Okay, that changes the thing. That changes for me.
Because remember, she walks up to the top floor of the house and she opens the bedroom door and she's looking at her parents, and her dad wakes up and she closes the door real fast and locks it.
I'm an idiot. I thought like that was some sort of her way of leaving, or I don't know, like her parents are overprotective. Okay, I mean, she sets her parents' house on fire.
I mean, it is a way of her leaving, but she's like... She's like kind of like burning the bridge to her past life in a way, because this is before like the transformation that she undergoes. But
oh god, that changes everything for me. I thought they were still alive.
Okay. She burns them.
Never mind.
And like, because the movie is so vague about her relationship with her dad, and her mom is kind of like a non-factor in it, but she is a victim. Regardless of what you think about what her relationship is with her dad, she burns them alive. And God, this is kind of something...
Her mom seemed nice, by the way.
Yeah. Like her mom, like literally doesn't get any characterization.
Has like 2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
Seems like somebody nice.
Jesus.
At least acknowledges her.
Piss break.
I think this scene following her on the run, I think it's some of the best camera work I've seen in a while. It has like this handheld feel, these tracking shots. We kind of have like that same perspective of the murderer in the house where it's at the feet. I love these shots from like underneath, that underneath perspective pointing up into the faces of our characters, where it like almost feels like the camera was shot at the hips or at the knee. I really love the way she moves through like this train station.
And the camera is able to give focus on other things that are important to the plot, even though it is done in such a hands-on way, because the camera does follow her around when she walks past the wanted sign. And sorry, I'm just now getting my voice back after choking on water in between our piss break a few minutes ago. So my apologies. But it is really nice camera work. It's setting the stage for the second half of the movie that we're about to get into, which in my opinion is where the real movie starts for me.
And this is like 40 minutes of setup. I do have my questions, but we'll get there. This is one of those other scenes where I had to like turn away. I have a really hard time watching her make these choices as a character without like external input. Something's not happening to her. She's making the choice to do this. Watching her break her nose was fucking tough. Of course, like, you can't do it the first try.
It's almost comedic in her attempts to complete this task.
She cuts her hair because her wanted photo has already been drawn up and posted in this train station, and she's had to walk through multiple police. She's hitchhiked to this train station.
It doesn't help that she has a very identifiable look to her. Like, the sides of her head are shaved, but then she's got like this like dyed blonde mullet. You could point this person out in a crowd quite easily.
I mean, I found the way her evasiveness through this opening part of the scene was like really well done. It felt like kind of Mission Impossible-y, if you can put it that way.
Yeah.
Where it kind of lent itself to like a heist film. I found that pretty interesting. Where we're following a character through like this it's very fast, and you're watching this character navigate within just a few minutes of multiple police officers turning away, like pretending to tie their shoes, pretending to look back at the terminal. You know, I found that pretty interesting. But her going into the bathroom, man, like her cutting her hair, I was like, okay, I'm on board. Like cutting her hair, that's pretty fucking smart. And watching her break her nose, where I was like, stop, please don't do this to me. Christ.
This is one of those scenes that bothered me the most as well. But it makes sense because it does set it up where she's looking at that missing child poster, and they've kind of like digitally shown how this child would look like later on in life. Because I believe it kind of states that there's been about 10 years between now and then when the child went missing. So it's showing how they would have grown up.
Like 25 or something like that is their estimated age.
And this actress that plays Alexia kind of has like an androgynous look to her, to where she could kind of like fit into that mold. This is something I wanted to bring up earlier in a way. This is such a bold performance by this actress, especially considering that this is her first role. She has never acted before.
What?
Yeah. The director found her on Instagram.
The power of the internet.
This isn't one of those situations like Julia Fox that got picked up to play in Uncut Gems a couple years ago, where she was a non-actress that got thrown into something. The woman in this movie, I believe her name is Agatha Ruzel. This is like one of the most bold performances I've ever seen. It is so physical. It requires so much nudity and like being vulnerable. It also requires her to like act without speaking most of the time.
Correct, yes.
And she
doesn't speak like the back half of the film at all. She doesn't speak at all.
I think she has one line of dialogue, and that's something that we'll get to later.
I mean, she talks to like the fans and stuff briefly.
Yeah.
God damn. I didn't really think about that.
She kills it. This is like an excellent performance.
No, yeah, I never questioned the acting capability. I mean, I'm not very familiar with like French actors and actresses where I'm thinking like whether somebody's recognizable in foreign films or not. So I kind of already assumed, hey, like this is just somebody that is in French cinema.
It's insane how good she is in this role.
Considering that if we're going to talk about the physicality of her performance, she shaves her eyebrows off. Your eyebrows are one of the primary ways of displaying emotion. That's like really impressive, actually.
It's fucking crazy, dude.
Okay. She breaks her nose. That shit's fucking disgusting. I could never imagine. You feel like so close to the character during these moments where you like feel their pain and you feel like that anxiety. Like a part of me like still fucking hates her. Like she's a piece of shit. Here's something that I don't know.
What's that?
We get introduced to our other almost like co-lead, which is Vincent.
My man.
My steroid-loving hunk of a man.
I love this character.
I love him. He's like the most fucked up version of somebody I love ever. Like, he's so fucked up. If you put him down on paper, you would be like repulsed by him. But I love this guy. He's like our saving humanitarian character. But he gets introduced in a way that I think I don't understand, or I didn't understand until now. Does he get called to the police station because he's just somebody they call when a missing person comes?
It's specifically because this person is claiming to be his son.
Ah, okay.
And this scene's super important, too.
Because she makes the decision to portray herself as this person. Okay, that's something I didn't pick up on, and it's something that I kind of like was confused by.
Okay, I was too on my first viewing.
She chooses to say, I'm this guy that's been missing, and oh, fuck. That changes the complete... Okay.
There's a reason why it shows her viewing the missing child poster like 2 or 3 times before this even happens.
Okay. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That changes so much for me. Because I thought, like, oh, these characters have some, like, sort of history together. Like, she must have called this guy. And, like, no. She's like, she says, I'm this guy's son.
Yeah.
Oh,
you didn't know that?
My God.
Dude, that's going to change the second half of the movie so much for you.
Like, I thought for some reason, like, okay, it didn't click with me. Like, I thought, okay, these people, like, these people have a past together that I didn't pick up on. He says this character is so desperate to have their son back that he says, he makes a statement to the officer. He said, like, we can do a DNA test if you're unsure. He says, you think I cannot recognize my own son?
That's super important.
Whoa. Okay, because I knew he had to suspend his disbelief that this wasn't his son.
But you thought that he was helping someone out.
Yes. And I'm like, this guy's fucking nuts. I mean, he is, but like, he's fucking nuts. Like, he has some sort of dark side to him where
this is exciting.
He was gonna help. Like, almost kind of felt like a criminal aspect to him, where he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna."
No, he's a good guy.
No. This is like a guy that like misses their child so much, where like he's. Oh my god, dude, that changes everything for me. Man, I really needed to watch this movie more than once.
Dude, I was so bummed when this weekend came and passed and you hadn't watched it yet, because I was like, fuck, he really needs to chew on it for a couple of days before we talk about it.
I should have watched it instead of watching Drive My Car.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. That's a movie that I don't know if I like yet or not. I need to watch it again. I think, okay, that changes a lot for me. And that makes me empathize with his character so much more now. Fuck.
I mean, if this was somebody helping out a friend, why would she be running away so much? But here's another nugget of wisdom or information that I can give you. I think that he knows from the very beginning that she's not his son.
Yes.
But of course, he is so desperate to take care of somebody that he accepts it, or like he's so delusional that he'll make himself believe it.
Yes. That changes a lot for me, and I respect this character so much more now. I'm more interested. Okay, that kind of like, that really connected the bridge for me. I got the back half of the film, and I get the climax, and I understand that aspect of it, but I was always curious. I'm like, how did these characters come to meet? And I didn't put the two together. Like, it is very much a choice to say this was a missing child, and I didn't really pick up on that. I thought like she was just trying to change her identity somehow in a way, or like this guy was somehow connected to her, and I never got that nugget of information to like how they were connected. So it definitely ties. That's my bridge that I needed connected.
Okay.
That was my other big question for the film, because I didn't understand that at the get-go.
Okay. I hope that doesn't mess up like any comments that you had to make.
No.
This last half.
Literally, it was just that. Like, I was like, how did these two characters come to be together? And that cleared it up completely for me. He says to her, like, thinking it's his son,
maybe.
How can you not say anything? You haven't said a word.
When she tries to run out of the car and he like runs up and catches her real fast, this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about how he's like kind of her match. He is able to stop her from doing things because he is very masculine. He gives this great line of dialogue where he says, if anyone tries to hurt you, I'll kill them. Even if it's myself.
Yes, I'll kill myself.
That shit is powerful as fuck, man.
And that makes more sense to me because in his mind, his child's been through something and won't display that to him. And he thinks like, has this person my child been through child trafficking, or, you know, these types of things where, oh my God, that changes so much for me.
Yeah.
This is such a powerful back half of the film.
It really does come together in this last half.
And that it changes for me because I didn't understand the dialogue that he has with, I believe,
his ex-wife.
No. Almost like the co-captain, like the leader of the boys. What's that guy's name? Like
Rayanne or Ryan, something like that.
He says, "Captain, I'm happy for you, truly." I was like, "What does that mean?" Like, I thought he was trying to hide something from, like, he was, like, trying to help her out type of thing. Like, oh, like this, you know, so I was like, oh, he's, like, disconnected from that line of dialogue in a way. Like, he doesn't know how to respond because this isn't really his son. So that, okay, makes sense. God damn, that's insane. I'm having, like, a shell shock over here. I love the line of dialogue he gives to the rest of the firefighters, EMTs. He like definitely commands the respect of like his employees or, you know, fellow firefighters or whatever. Talks about, who am I around here? I am God to you. Whatever I say goes. And this is Jesus, my son. Do not question Jesus.
He says, if he has something to say, then he'll say it, and we will listen. It's like really great writing, actually. Like
amazing.
Considering how vague and like how little dialogue you get, the stuff that you do get matters a lot. God, it's so good.
I won't comment on it too much, but I really loved the line of dialogues between the other EMTs where one of them was so concerned, like, who is that? It's like that some guy, like, you know, is it one of those special needs, like here on like one of those mission, you know, like one of those special outings, like volunteer for the day type of thing. He's like, nah, you'll find out who he is. I thought that shit was like hilarious and like great. Yeah? That was great writing. You know, that kind of, those lines of dialogue, the whole Jesus thing and the Make-A-Wish Foundation bullshit, kind of like sets up that tone for the back half of the film. It's like it completely changes from like this weird like thriller suspense,
like slasher almost,
into like some sort of
family drama,
and has like more comedy. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the body horror comes back and it definitely like is littered throughout and it breaks up scenes very well. It definitely is an indication of like things are going to settle down and cool off, and it'll be more of like an emotional development for the back half of the film.
Yeah, when the body horror stuff does come back, I thought that the gross parts from the second section of the movie were actually the most disturbing to me, like even more than the murder and mayhem in the first half. Now, those particular parts, we'll get to them. A lot of the scenes in this upcoming section of the movie really are Alexia just adjusting to life at home and her kind of trying to plot her escape. I don't know what her motivation or her plan is, because she's like trying to leave, even though it would be much smarter to hide in plain sight as the identity of this missing child. Like, I don't know what her plan was, if she was going to like just run.
And her motive really is that she doesn't want to let anybody in.
That's true as well.
She doesn't want to like have any sort of human interaction that's meaningful to where she can become trusting of other individuals. I believe moving forward after like we get introduced to the rest of the fire crew and stuff, did they eat dinner together? Is that like the next scene?
Alexia and Vincent?
No, she has to get undressed.
Yeah, there's a couple of scenes of that.
Where she's trying to hide the fact that she's getting pregnant. And we've been shown that, hey, she's very much pregnant. It's moving very quickly as well.
Something about the car baby is much faster than the 9-month order of events for most people.
Something that really disturbed me that was like motif through the back half of the film was her scratching her side.
Oh, yeah.
In the way, how do I describe it? The way the sound design is portrayed for the actual scratching itself is put in a way where it almost sounds like she's scratching a table. It's like less skin and more like hard. Like,
makes sense considering what happens in the very last scene.
Yes. I mean, and I knew like we get later throughout where she punctures her actual side from scratching hard enough to reveal like titanium growing inside of her, where the actual like her belly is. Like, that shit's fucked up. We get like a lot of character development, and I don't want to brush past it anytime soon. I mean, the fact that she's had her hair cut, well, now she needs like a proper haircut, and we get like this scene of Vincent cutting her hair.
She's kind of unwilling to let him in. Like, she is kind of fighting him. And I feel like Vincent is at a loss as to what to do. I don't know how much you were trying to say about this haircutting scene.
He only gets to cut like half her hair.
That's true. She does have a very ugly half fade for a large portion of the movie. His way of like trying to get her in is by dancing. Playing the 60s song, and he does this goofy dance where his like hands are like perfectly straight out while he's dancing. And really, dancing plays kind of a big part in a few scenes in the movie, displaying character motivation or action.
At the beginning, and I would say like the middle of the back half on top of the fire truck. Dancing becomes this way of these characters to kind of like let loose and show themselves. Yeah, I just want to say we don't have to like be super structured here. I feel like we've set up in a long way of like the beginning of the film. It was a lot to like get through.
Yeah,
we can kind of hop around.
Yeah, we can be loose. There's like themes and stuff I want to tackle as well.
This will be the perfect time for it. Dancing in particular. Alexia, our main character, dances for a living. It's a way of her being feminine and sexual. It's a way for her to connect with the vehicle. Our firefighters have like a dance party, like on multiple occasions.
I was so confused by this.
Oh, we'll get there. I have a lot to say about that, actually. But the dancing with Vincent in particular was like a way for these characters to connect non-verbally, which I found was really interesting. Again, motifs back into the dancing theme. Man, I love Vincent. He tries so hard, regardless of how fucked up he is, to try to connect back on a level where, you know, he's already kind of getting frustrated with the fact that she won't say anything, like, oh, you won't talk.
Even my phone will talk to me.
That was great.
Siri, say yes. We. Look, 20 fucking euros. That was really funny.
Yes. And she tries to escape right there. And I think they fight.
Kinda. It's like a playful father-son fighting where they're like slap boxing. But I think Alexia starts taking it really seriously. And she uses that moment to strike and almost stabs him in the face with her little hair thingy.
Uh-huh.
This kind of leads into a scene that I kind of wanted to talk about. Were you confused by the bus scene where she leaves and almost gets on the bus to leave and then decides not to?
I wasn't confused by it. I think it kind of had that Bob Odenkirk. I thought it was going to take that route of Bob Odenkirk nobody, of being on the bus like, oh, she's going to kill these 4 people and it's going to be like Slasher again.
I'm glad it did not do that.
Yeah, it chooses the route of, I think she's kind of like on her last leg, and if she kills these 4 dudes, it's going to be like, now her face is going to be identified again. You know, she'll be on the run again. It'll be worse for her. And she kind of just chooses to just get off the bus. I found that kind of a pivotal moment of the movie deciding that it's not this anymore. And it's like, we're going through the emotional exploration. It's this character being like choosing the more vulnerable route and not dealing with her problem in a physical way. And I know it comments, and I'm sure you'll have something to say, but like with the fact that the person that sits down next to her on the opposite side of the road is a female, and 4 men get on the bus in the back, and they're like completely sexualizing this woman in a way that's like completely inappropriate, and that's the only way I can put it. Like, they're basically verbally harassing this woman, like telling her to come back here so we can smack your ass and bullshit. Like, oh, if I'd turn her around and I'd fuck her ear if I could. Like, just,
I think one of the guys says like a hole is a hole.
I'd fuck her ear. Yeah. Like, what? No. I thought like it was setting up that Bob Odenkirk, like, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, I thought it was gonna go there.
I think you absolutely got everything about that scene correct. It comments on the gender identity thing about like woman versus man.
The movie does comment on that a lot in the back, like the last hour of the film. I think the movie's about an hour and 45. It's split up really about an hour and a half. But the last 45 minutes it does kind of blend the gender a lot, and it's very modern and up to date with like the current social and political issues that surround our daily lives. But she's perceived more as a man at this point because she has taken on that identity, and she's not being sexualized by these men, even though she could, because in the previous parts of the film,
she already knows.
She
already knows how it is.
Yeah. She has been followed around by men thinking that she's the hot shit dancing on top of the cars.
And she knows that she can't go back to this cold world where she would endure that kind of pressure anymore. Now, here's something I'm confused about. During this scene, you're kind of getting like cuts between her on the bus and then Vincent injecting steroids, and he like overdoses and like passes out.
Yes.
When she goes back to the house, she acts like she's about to kill him, even though she had already made the choice to go back. Now, I don't know if this is just showing the confliction that she's feeling about like fully jumping into this vulnerable state, or if it's like a continuity like issue.
I think it has to do with, I mean, if I'm really going to stretch and try to understand, I want to say her as a character has started to trust him in a way. We've already got the line of dialogue of, if someone tries to hurt you, I'll kill them. This is a character that is completely foreign to what she's known. Like, this is a father that, like, somebody that wants to care, somebody that like makes an active effort despite something being incredibly wrong and something being like, you could be dismissive. But this character is so desperate for something to love because they've been absent from that, like raising their own child. You know, I think she feels a level of trust with him in a way that she hasn't experienced before. I mean, especially from other men and from her father. Maybe that might be why she trusts him more. I don't know if it's like necessarily a continuity error, but at this point, I think our character Alexia is making choices in a way that is more of survival, proactive approach and offensive approach. Instead of killing, she's more defensive and like becomes more passive.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say with that as well. I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to cover it all, but she already knows she can't kill him just like one-on-one. She finds him in a vulnerable state, and maybe she feels the need to take care of him because she is taking care of her in a way where she's at her most vulnerable. He could have turned her away at the police station.
Yeah.
Where she almost can be indebted to this person. He like never like forces himself on her in a way that's inappropriate. He's always like with the changing clothes. Like that's a perfect example
He
where
gives her her privacy.
Yes. He like respects her.
Although there are a few points where like he's expressing his like affection for having his son back, and he's like kissing down her neck.
Yeah, this is like very odd.
Now, I want to think this is because it's a French movie and it's a difference of culture. Because in other countries where they like kiss each other on the cheek just to greet them.
And this is something that's already happened with the first scene of killing the dude in the car. Was he tries to say goodbye. He says, "Can I get the kiss goodbye?" I don't know why I did a French accent because it's subtitled.
You did the Borat accent.
May I get the kiss? But he kisses her. She kisses him on the cheek goodbye. Again, like a greeting thing. It does get slightly off-putting to me because they're in the back half of the film. It does have a blending of more than a father-son relationship once he comes to the realization that she is not a he, yeah. And she is not his son.
Yeah,
and she also tries to kiss him multiple times, and I think he kind of like, and that's at the end, but he refuses that. It is kind of like
it's a cultural thing,
and it is both of those things where it is kind of a cultural thing and a uncomfortable kind of blending of roles between son/daughter, caretaker/lover.
Because despite the fact that these two characters aren't related, they do establish a familial bond, and then when it goes there, it feels quite wrong. Now, me and you are from like the Midwest. And it's not something we do here. Like this kissing.
No.
You know what I mean? I got my friend Logan to watch this movie.
Oh, really?
I did.
I think he told me that.
A little bit, yeah. And I remember him texting me, and he said, "Why are French people like this?" And it's like hard to explain to other people that it's just different in other countries. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like right or wrong.
No, it's kind of one of the reasons why I enjoy foreign films as well. I recently watched Drive My Car, and I just mentioned it earlier. The way Japanese culture is so much different than American culture, it does have like capitalism and like those things are very mirrored in that culture compared to ours, but they're much more structured and businesslike, and things must be perfect, and they're very formal with their greetings and stuff. Like they would never be so personal and affectionate with their greetings and goodbyes and stuff. Like everything's very handshaky, and your choice of words are very premeditated and structured with the way they choose their words.
Calculated.
Jesus Christ, we got there.
And like the French, when you think about France, it's like very romanticized.
Correct. Paris,
passionate. Like it's passion and romance, and
don't shave their armpits and use deodorant and stuff like that.
Yeah, and people piss in the streets, and apparently Paris is like a very smelly city of urine.
That's awesome, actually. Something I do want to talk about briefly is the choice of color in the cinematography that I found was really nice, and I think we can tie into a few scenes. The first is the first kind of party scene with the EMTs/firefighters and Alexia and Vincent, where like the whole room is covered in pink and purple. And I found like this use of color extremely pleasant to the eyes. Like the movie's very cold.
Yeah.
And like these moments feel like full of life and warmth, which was really nice.
Are these like homoerotic fucking fireman dances?
Yeah,
like,
fuck yeah.
Are these like a norm in France? Because my dad is a firefighter, and if I asked him about this, he'd probably be like, "Okay, what the fuck?"
I will say I am friends and I was a close family friend with multiple Marines. And on their Snapchat stories, I have seen, and I won't say shirtless, but I'm sure there have been a few times. But imagine being away from women. What you do is you drink alcohol when you're off duty, and you have like basically frat parties with your boys, and they dance and get drunk.
Things start getting a little weird.
And things do get weird. And that's between them and their buttholes. I don't want to know whether or not they fuck or not, but I just think it's something to do with like kind of that culture. I imagine just based on the way it's been presented to us as far as like the whole firefighter EMT dynamic, it kind of feels more of like a family than a job. It feels like a line of service where it's kind of this almost, how do you put it? It does have like a military family type of feel to it. These guys are all pretty clean cut, muscular dudes. They probably all work out together. They all wear uniforms. It kind of has that feeling of, you know what I mean? And yes, it does get kind of homoerotic in a way, and we can talk about that at the more like the party in the garage. But I found this as a way for, obviously the scene itself kind of lends itself to Vincent and Alexia, aka Adrian, moving through, getting back into the routine of things as a father and son.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right about the family thing, because this movie is about like a found family type situation. Have you ever heard the saying, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends? This movie is kind of showcasing how like these people do choose family, and that kind of goes into the firefighter thing as well, because you do have like the Vincent and Alexia dynamic about their found family dynamic. I've grown up with my father as a firefighter, and I've always known that firefighters have this brotherhood dynamic.
Frat type of deal.
I feel like it goes even deeper than that for them. Like it really is like this life or death like kind of bond between firefighters.
Or like police officers. They're like your brothers in arms almost.
Certainly. And I feel like the usage of Vincent being a firefighter captain is a very intentional thing.
Oh, for sure.
Like it has to go hand in hand with like the main storyline that's going on. But yeah, during that scene that you're talking about where they're in like the neon pink and purple drenched neon lights, you have that Ryan character coming back into the fold again, who keeps coming to Vincent and he's questioning him about Adrian/Alexia's legitimacy as his son,
because he's kind of become aware that she is a serial killer, because it happens in the back seat of the ambulance at the...
He's looking at the wanted poster of her. Now, I think his character is super intentional, because the first time you see him, he says, "They call me Conscience." That's super important. He is the nagging conscience to Vincent. He is the one firefighter character that keeps coming to him and saying,
the voice
like,
of reason.
He is the voice of reason.
In this fucked up situation that we're in.
We shoot forward to a scene where Vincent and Ryan are like at a forest fire. Of course, the end of the scene, Ryan dies. Or at least I would assume that he does.
I don't know, because at the end of that scene, he's still breathing.
I thought that too. And like during the second dance party of all the firemen,
he like flashes in. Okay,
as a scarred person
in a black hoodie. That person in a black hoodie is not partying. Okay, in the shot where Alexia is on the fire truck dancing like a woman, because she is, a person in a black hoodie is standing away from the crowd. So I think,
and she takes notice.
I think he's still alive. And I don't know.
He might still be alive, but I think his inclusion there is metaphorical.
And psychological.
Yeah.
But he is like standing. It's not like you get to see his face either. Like there is that like flash of his face and stuff and like in a quick sense of panic. But when she is dancing and the other crowd of firefighters is watching, there is a person standing like in the shadows in a black hoodie. And I don't know if it's like real or metaphorical or psychological, but I don't know if it matters at this point. You could be taken both ways. I was going to say, I do want to talk about the EMT scene where they come onto a scene together.
This will all go kind of hand in hand. I think both of these scenes connect to each other in a way. We'll talk about the revival scene first.
Okay.
I think this scene is important because it kind of shows Alexia's character development where in the beginning of the film, she was a life taker, and then she's put into this position where she is saving somebody's life, even though she doesn't know them and she has no attachment to them. Like, that's super important. And of course, like the dynamic between Alexia and Vincent, they're opposites because Alexia is a life taker and by career choice, Vincent is a life saver. But when we shoot forward to the forest fire scene, I think that Vincent kind of takes a part of Alexia, in which he kind of intentionally
gives that gas tank to him.
He kind of leads to the quote unquote accidental death of this Ryan character, or serious scarring and damage to this character, whether they live or not.
Yeah, I picked up on that, and I think it is very intentional that he tries to kill this character. He tries to kill the voice of reason, because it's already been established at this point that he's brought up to it many times. He comes up to him at the neon pink party. We need to talk about Adrian. We need to talk about your son. And he immediately shuts it down like, we don't talk about my son. This is his way of like keeping this facade going. Yeah, it's really intense.
He did say he would kill for Adrian.
He did say that.
In quotes. God, it's so good. It's so good.
I think I want to talk about the other mention of
the revival scene.
But yes, the revival. We should talk about that too. I really enjoyed. I have a really hard time. Sorry, I probably shouldn't play with these bottle caps.
Just peel the label.
I have a hard time with overdose scenes. I don't know if you've seen. I know you've probably seen a few episodes, but like Euphoria, there's a scene where like main character of Zendaya like overdoses and it's shown in like the foaming of the mouth and like choking on your own vomit and shit.
This always disturbs me to a great deal.
Shit out of me because you know it happens to real people and it's fucking sad.
It's also a very big deal around where we live. I mean,
oh, dude, Ohio is the heroin capital of the world.
Vice has even written a lengthy article about my hometown, Middletown. Like, it's quite known that this is like a heroin capital.
I can't go a day without like just seeing somebody and knowing they're on heroin.
Yeah.
Like people
constantly
driving into the gas station. Like I saw somebody the other day and they were driving this white van that was filthy as shit. And this guy had a beanie, looked like he hadn't showered in a month, a big ass beard and sunken eyes. And I'm like, that guy does heroin. And it's like, yeah. I mean, I've seen people get put on an ambulance while delivering pizzas multiple times.
We certainly live this. Now, in the context of the scene, the guy that needs reviving overdosed on sleeping pills, I believe. I enjoy how, and this is a little bit of a comedic thing for me, amongst this like very dark situation where Vincent is trying to get Alexia / Adrian to revive this woman that passed out from the stress of the situation of her son overdosing, and they're using the Macarena.
Yeah. You know, this is something that I came to know recently, that CPR can be put to a certain beats per minute, and it's good to remember songs. For one, the Macarena, or like the Imperial March from Star Wars, like dun dun dun.
I think there's a scene in The Office where they're going over CPR procedures, and the song is "Staying Alive." Not, staying alive. It's kind of funny in a very dark, twisted way.
It's a good way to lighten up the scene for sure, because it's pretty dark from the get-go. I love Vincent's dialogue where like, Jesus Christ, now she's croaking. Like I think that shit's hilarious. And I think as like a paramedic, you know, this guy does this every day. Like I just think that's like funny that this is just his job. And
I've heard my dad tell many stories in a comical sense about stuff like this.
Like putting ice cubes up people's asses and shit. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
I've talked to police officers through family friends, and he's like, my favorite part is when we were putting Narcan in somebody and they wonder why their underwear is wet, and you have to tell them that their buddy put an ice cube up their ass, and it's always funny to know that your buddy's seen your asshole.
Oh my God.
I think that shit's great. Oh man, drug abuse.
Hilarious.
Ha ha ha. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fuck. Where are we at?
The ex-wife. We should talk about that.
Yeah, we should talk about that. I find this scene, you get to know Vincent a little bit more. We get another character that kind of shows there's more to Vincent. I love her lines of dialogue of where she comes in and sees that she's naked. It's a she. She's pregnant with a card. And
Yeah. She might not know that.
she pities her and just says, like, whatever you do, you make sure
you take care of him.
Yeah, like that shit's really powerful to me.
I think that it comes before that scene where Vincent's ex-wife meets this fake Adrian for the first time.
And she knows it's not him.
And she's openly challenging the idea that this person is here faking this whole situation, where she says, I don't know how you can live next to that empty bedroom with Adrian's stench still permeating these walls, even though this person that is faking being Adrian is sitting right there. I saw that as a challenge. Going into that scene where she discovers that it is a naked woman that is pregnant, I feel like it gives a sense of dynamic between Vincent and his ex-wife, where I think that she's accepted the real Adrian's death a long time ago.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. When Vincent goes through that fire simulation in the midpoint of the movie, when they're going through it, he sees that
a charred body inside like almost like a desk.
Yeah.
Some sort of metal container.
I feel like this is another verification that he knows that Adrian is gone and that he is just kind of going along with Alexia's plan. Yeah, there's like so many weird, vague things.
They have like this sense of, there's like a void behind these unanswered questions, and you're curious and you feel like you get to really question these characters without really giving a whole lot of like dialogue, set in stone facts. And like, that's good. That's what makes a great movie. I mean, I guess depending on the nature of the film and genre, but something I really want to talk about is that second party where I feel like you kind of get the dynamic back with Vincent comes to terms that Alexia is not Adrian. She does like this promiscuous dance, like right back to her stripper roots, and it feels like a challenge. And I think he's coming to the point of acceptance that it's not actually Adrian. And I always also find it very interesting. We've kind of had like this homoerotic vague symbolism already with like a bunch of dancing men shirtless together. But now like they're in a rave, you know, they're all having like a good, and it kind of gets physical and everybody's pushing people around, and then they push her up on the fire truck to dance solo, and she chooses to dance in a very feminine sexual way.
And they boo.
But they're under the impression that she is a he. And some of the men look like they're into it. They're not booing. They're more like in a curiosity.
It's like super conflicted. I feel like this has to be a comment on something.
Oh, for sure. Like it has something to do with underlying homosexuality or kind of like these blending of genders.
Like repressed feelings in a way.
And also it could be like a comment on like transsexuality, where a man can be attracted to a trans woman and they might not even know it's a trans woman. And that can be like a conflicting thing for some men. And this is a discussion I've had with my girlfriend many a times, and like her family, just like when it comes up, it's like, well, you know, it can be really difficult and confusing for a man. Maybe he doesn't know that it's a trans woman, and you get down the line of a date or something, or like you meet some person in a bar and you think it's a woman. It can kind of be this conflicting thing for a person where you are attracted to a woman, but this person is a trans woman, and there's something that you're not expecting there. And that can be like really conflicting for somebody because your genetic cues and your animal instincts show you something that can be really confusing for a person, and you don't know if you accept that or not. And it kind of comments on, I mean, this is very brief, and I'm not saying it goes like that deep, but
the things that you can infer from it, I think, are relatively deep, though.
Yes. And I think like this movie is a great modern film. I think a lot of movies, they usually all have like the same formula to an extent.
Yeah, they do. Many movies are super boring for that reason.
We're going to see The Northman this weekend, and it's already been known to me that it is basically Hamlet in Viking Norse mythology. It's like revenge set up, a barbaric version of that, whether it's like Braveheart, Conan the Barbarian, Hamlet, it all has like this same plot formula. I'm sure it's going to be fun because it's going to be dark and disturbing. You know, it'll blend surrealism and all that shit. But that's been done before. I mean, The Green Knight came out a few years ago, and like while it's not as dark, it does blend surrealism with epic fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all types of films. There ain't a whole lot of movies that girls fuck cars and give birth and are serial killers, and so this movie is very.
It's super unique.
Yes, and I think it's a great way to explore some of these like modern issues.
Even though it is kind of like a new take on the cliche of like two misfits kind of learning to love each other or accept each other, but it's like an entirely different context.
No, it's like, imagine trying to explain this movie to your parents.
Imagine explaining this movie to anyone. Fuck your parents. I remember like talking about this at work a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of like, I think it was like to Gabe.
And you're like reluctant to like actually tell him what it's about.
Well, I wasn't reluctant.
What'd you say?
Well, you were standing there.
Was I?
But I talked about the plot to this movie and then the plot to Raw. And, like, he kind of walked away looking disturbed, and I made a comment like, God, I look like such a weirdo like liking these movies.
We are. We're so fucked up.
God.
I love it.
But like this movie, it starts off so disturbing and like slasher and thriller like, and it becomes wholesome. Like weirdly, it's wholesome in like an uncomfortable way.
Mm-hmm.
It challenged me, and I'm like so grateful for that.
I think it's a film that it really like breaks some barriers that I've never seen done before. I will say the only thing that I think is similar that I've seen is The Piano Teacher, which is a film that was played at like the Cannes Film Festival.
Ooh, you've seen that?
I have it on Criterion Collection.
Oh man, who did that movie? It's a name that I know.
It's a French film. It's about a woman that is like sexually repressed, and she like is in love with her mother, but also like is abused by her mother. She like goes to these sex arcades, which I don't think we have those here in the States. Or like
I don't think we do.
but they're like basically like porn shops that have like masturbation booths, and she like goes into these booths and like doesn't even masturbate. She picks up used Kleenex and like all these like weird shit and like goes through all like the trash, and like it's a very, very disgusting, disturbing movie, but it kind of has like that same, the blending of like a parental and like love interest and these like repressed feelings. God damn you, French, you fucking weird bastards, you. I think this movie is really profound. And, I've only heard praise for the film. I mean, I did read an article that someone wrote like on a blog post saying like this movie tries to be art housey, but it's not. And let me tell you why. Like the use of color is boring, and like I'm like, okay, whatever. Can you imagine like a movie being successful if you wrote down the plot on paper? You got to give it props.
Yeah, certainly.
Do you want to talk about the end of the film?
Yeah, let's go for it, man. We're kind of in that home stretch.
I think the ending of this film, I had gone through it the whole time being like kind of, I don't know how the bow is going to be put on the end of this. And literally the last 15 minutes are like,
they fly by.
Yeah. Man, what a great ending to this fucking chaos.
God, this is fantastic.
I thought the body horror in this was actually extremely moving, believe it or not. Like the whole time throughout the film, I had been repulsed. But at this point, like watching like motor oil come out of her tits and shit, I'm like, at this point, I was like about to cry.
Was there any point where you felt like it was try hard?
No.
You know what I mean? Like edgelord type shit, like trying to be shocking for the sake of being shocking. Because I did not.
I will say, like, just on a personal level, I find the idea of childbirth extremely moving. And it's something that in the last few months, I'm moving on to that next era of my life where, like, I'm very excited one of these days to have children. And I found this extremely moving between these two characters. I did not find the motor oil disturbing, like, because I've already been desensitized to it throughout the film, where I thought, okay, like this is just the normality for this character. Like motor oil comes out of her vagina. Like it is what it is. And I thought the ability to use motor oil as a symbol of like birthing, what do you call that shit?
Just like normal like secretion,
like blood
that a woman might endure.
My girlfriend smacked me upside the head because I can't get that vocabulary down. She's like, "It's this, you dumbass." But like fecal matter. Not fecal matter, that's poop. Fetus matter, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck. I thought that was extremely moving. And there's a lot happening in this final scene. She fucks the fire truck.
There's a reason behind this, I believe. I've heard that in the later days of pregnancy, having sex can actually induce labor during those later periods, you know? So I think that's why she does it.
Okay.
Or that's why it's portrayed in the film the way it is. During this later stretch of the movie, she's coming home and like she's obviously in so much pain. It's showing her like stomach ripping open and like showcasing these like titanium wounds. It is disgusting. This is actually the moments of the movie that made me the most squeamish. But it turns into something kind of beautiful by the time it gets to it.
We kind of brushed over the fact that she tries to come on to Vincent.
Well, yeah, that's during this scene too.
Okay. And he like lights himself on fire while drunk.
Yeah, I think there was intention behind this too.
No, for sure. I read into it like he has come to the realization that Alexia is not Adrian, and he kind of wants to die. I kind of thought of it as a failed suicide. I know some people perceive it as like him just being drunk because he was like extremely drunk and he like spills alcohol all over his shirt and then he decides to light it on fire.
He does it on purpose.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this scene is contrasted with the scenes of Alexia in pain through labor, because he's doing this action to himself and putting himself in pain while the woman has no choice. There has to be some kind of gender commentary right here where like the woman goes through pain because it's Mother Nature, but the man kind of is inflicting pain on himself. You know what I mean? I feel like there has to be something there. They do come together. She's in so much pain that she goes to him in this final scene and like is going to him for comfort. And it feels like the moment where she really is accepting him as the fatherly figure. And it is super weird that she comes on to him.
I thought of it as her last ditch effort to escape from the reality that she's about to experience. Because she starts like by kissing his burns on his stomach.
Yeah.
I thought it was her because she comes up into the house like in writhing in pain, like butt ass naked. She's like experiencing so much pain, and then like she immediately like kind of puts it off just to like snuggle up to Vincent. And I thought it was like a way of saying, or like her trying to avoid this inevitability of like giving birth. He like tries to leave the room after like pushing her away. This is her first time like screaming out for like, please don't leave. And I was like, damn.
I also kind of saw it as a way to comment on her relationship with her real father. I feel like the movie semi-insinuates that she might have been sexually abused by her real father. And the only way that she knows this familial bond is by like a sexual act. I don't know 100% if that's what the movie is saying, but the fact that she sees this man as her father, that she's starting to make a move on him.
It's not a far stretch.
In the logic of this movie, it really isn't. I don't know, though, because the movie leaves so many things as vague as they are.
Again, I think this birthing scene is extremely moving. In the most disgusting way this movie portrays it, I did find it very moving. I didn't think it was distasteful at all. It felt like almost, and as crazy as it sounds, it felt like a tasteful way to show the intimacy of giving birth without like it being some sort of like 8th grade, your parents have to sign the permission slip for you to watch the birthing video. It felt like this really intimate and beautiful thing that you could get away with during film in a way that like, oh, you could write it off as twisted, but you're already so desensitized and you've been shown all this like weird biomechanical and integration between man and machine. You're just used to it. Like this has become your reality. And I found that like really impressive and like very beautiful.
So did I. I think the final shots of the movie where he is, of course, like Alexia dies from this childbirth.
Like her stomach splits.
Oh, yeah. Even her scar in her head from like where she had the titanium plate inserted.
Opens up.
Yeah, like it's like super disturbing.
Like almost like the straining of like your blood vessels in your neck could like tear your skin.
And she does give birth, and Vincent holds up the baby, and you can see that it has like a metal spine kind of. He lays her down, and he just says, "I'm here," like while patting the baby. And the movie ends on that with like this like epic choir music playing behind it. Now, I feel like there could be a lot to comment on about the whole car baby situation where I've read online where people were disappointed in the movie because they were like, I was expecting this like Transformers like Lightning McQueen baby. You know what I mean?
Ka-chow.
The Lightning McQueen origin story
Jesus Christ.
coming summer of 2025.
What if it came out and just said, wow. Oh, shit.
If it would have gone full
Yeah.
B movie science fiction, it would have like fucking ruined the
yeah.
movie. Like, fuck you if you thought that it should have been like extreme. It really did not need to be.
No, I found it actually quite interesting because the only visuals that you get of the baby is like, obviously it's a newborn baby and it looks like a newborn baby, but you don't get to see the face and you get to see the spine that's like made out of metal. I've read a lot about how the metal is a form of trauma.
Thank God that you mentioned this. Generational trauma, how it's
Correct.
passed down between generations.
We can't do this right now. All right. I found that extremely interesting. Look, I don't know if that's like a complete, directorial choice. Is this something that was intentional, or is it just a way to show that the baby is like hybrid?
It has to be intentional. Everything in this movie was super intentional.
Which is like masterful. But I'm really glad that it's something that got touched upon where, yeah, you could take like the B movie route. And I think this trauma approach to like the titanium, like literally the physical trauma of being in the car wreck and getting the titanium plate in her skull, the attachment she has to vehicles, the vehicle was the vehicle of trauma.
Yeah, and it has something to do with like how the way people that endure trauma might go back to the source of trauma as a way of comfort. Like people in like violent relationships somehow keep up ending up in violent relationships.
Or I can't remember what the exact people that have been kidnapped become in love with their kidnappers.
Yeah, it's a Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome? Yeah, maybe. I think you're right. Man, that's like a lot. This movie does a lot.
Yeah, it does.
And honestly, the amount of time that it accomplishes like this amount of intense like symbolism and psychological questioning the nature of fucking a car, it feels honestly like a masterclass for like modern cinema.
Yeah.
I recently watched Drive My Car and it was 3 hours long and I felt like it could have been cut by a half hour. I feel like it could have accomplished the same outcome, and I'm just really surprised that a lot happened in this short amount of time. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen in a while, but I don't love it. I'm extremely disturbed by it. And I've only seen it once, and that, like, I bet if I watched it again, I'd be like, this is the best movie I've ever seen.
But I bet there's a part of you that doesn't want to watch it ever again.
No.
Right?
Never.
That's how I felt. I watched it 3 times before doing this, and there is a part of me that doesn't ever want to see it again, but it lived in my head since the moment that I saw it. And there's like stuff that we didn't even get into about the gender identity stuff with especially Vincent, because of course Alexia is shedding her feminine characteristics and Vincent is like losing his masculinity
Via
and
steroids.
He's trying to hold on to that youth like by taking steroids, and you get that scene where he's like doing the pull-ups in the gym. That
shit was amazing.
Yeah.
I audibly like died laughing. I thought that shit was like a perfect exploration of like dying masculinity, where he has to just fucking shoot up, and he can't do it's called a what's that? God damn it. No, it's not a pull up. He's trying to do like a muscle up, where you do a pull up and then you press on top of it. He could do a pull up. He was doing the pull up. He couldn't get up. He couldn't like press. It's basically a pull up and then your chest pressing on top of the bar. He couldn't do that shit, which I'm sure he could have done in his younger years. I honestly think the actor himself does steroids because he has a little bit of like hormone gut, which is like your abdomen becomes a little bit inflated. Abs are a little bit big because there's like almost like like air underneath your abdomen, because it kind of looks like he has like a shield of some sort on his chest. Like things become disproportionate. Watching the steroid shit was honestly like one of my favorite parts of the film.
Same.
I mean, as somebody that works out, I'm like kind of obsessed with like steroid use. As somebody that would love to do it and never do it at the same time, I found the comedic aspect of the steroid use and also the defeating aspect of the steroid use like extremely interesting and something that I've never seen done before in a film. This movie's fucking nuts.
It is so nuts. It is the weirdest blend of genres that somehow works, even though it's like super messy in a way, but all the metaphorical stuff really comes together that does tie it up in a bow at the end.
Can I just say, the only kind of gripe that I do have with the film is the serial killer shit.
It felt out of place, kind of.
And I understand it's a vehicle to show how cold she is, but I don't understand why it has to be killing, but I know she has to run away.
It's so separated from the rest of the film.
It feels completely cut in half. It's like an interesting outline where it is completely two separate films. It has like a moment where I feel like at the bus stop, it is like set in stone that she is no longer a killer.
Yeah.
And it turns into something else. It's more of an exploratory thing.
I think the fact that the serial killer stuff makes her such a despicable character elevates that second half of the film, but on its own, it doesn't stand up quite as much compared to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
Once Vincent is introduced, you do have that like humane version. Like
I love that character so much.
He's great, man. The actor that portrays him does a great job, and he does a physical performance as well. I mean, you see him like injected with steroids. He kind of appears semi-nude multiple times through the movie.
Looks like like blood's boiling at one point in the mirror, and it's like this very...
He looks like Kirby.
Yeah. It looks like a piece of raw meat almost.
Yeah.
That's actually a thing that happens to people that do steroids. Sometimes like their skin can get really red.
Really?
Like their blood pressure's so high.
Okay. That helps clear something up for me then.
Also, I think it's a use of the color in that scene as well. It's like very pink and bright.
And the bathroom is pink as well.
It's almost like this last hurrah. It's like this display of like boiling life and like the attempt to hold on to his humanity in a way, contrasted with like this cold, pale, eyebrowless, fucking broken nose looking bitch. It's like this methodical serial killer. I mean, I think the use of color was really nice to kind of mirror these two yin and yangs.
I have one thing left too.
I was going to say that's a very passionate inhale.
One last thing to praise about the movie. The use of music. Now, I'm not talking about really the soundtrack itself, even though I did think it was good. The use of licensed music was actually better than many other movies I've seen. And that's because, did you watch this movie with like, I know it already has subtitles on, but did you watch it with your TV set to subtitles already to where you got like the lyrics of the music that was
think
playing?
so. And it like showed me the licensed songs playing, like says like The Lighthouse by
Future Islands.
Yeah.
Every song with English language that plays in the movie has relevance to what's happening within the movie.
For sure.
The very first song that plays during the prologue with Alexia and her father is by a band called 16 Horsepower. The song where she's at the car show is a song called Doing It Till Death by The Kills, which I thought she literally does do it till death.
Mm-hmm.
Like having sex kills her in this movie. Mm-hmm. When she's dancing on the fire truck, the song, it's like this Western tune about a wanderer going to like meet their father for the first time. And then the Future Islands Lighthouse song, I can't remember the lyrics to it, but I remember it also had relevance to the plot.
I think it had to do something with like love or some shit like that. I don't know. That's a stretch for me, but
I'm just saying usually when like licensed music is used in a movie, it's like kind of artificial and it's just like a pop tune just to play a pop tune. And I thought that in this movie, the songs were good and also the lyrics had relevance to the plot. And I thought that elevated things.
it kind of reminded me multiple times of the jazz scene in Another Round where they're dancing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a song that doesn't have lyrics, but I mean, dancing and music was like a huge part of this film. And in that film, I feel like that was a moment of like chaos and seductivity for the characters in that film, like Mads Mikkelsen's character getting dragged back into the alcoholism in that particular scene. Yeah, it was really good. Also, like the edit with the sound, the licensed music was like the first and loudest volume level on the mix. It blanketed the entire scene where it was like, it's very much a choice to say, this song has importance to this. They could have chosen any other music for those scenes and it still would have like achieved the same effect, but the fact that the songs itself have a direct correlation to what's happening in the film is extremely important. And I think the sound editing elevates that to another level of like intentional choice. letting the audience know that, yes, this is important and here's why.
I'm getting flashbacks to when we watched the Suicide Squad movie where like pop tunes were just used because they were pop music and they were popular and it would like attract attention. This movie is like the complete opposite. It is so meaningful to the movie itself. I just can't think of many examples where the songs actually elevated the film itself. I don't know.
I mean, I can think of a few moments in Tarantino films, but that is like...
This felt like cohesive all the way through.
It's never like those... That's just to elevate the action, and this is more like to elevate the emotion, which is really important. I will say, going into the podcast, I was dead set on like a 7.5. But I will say it's probably like a 9 out of 10 or like a 10 out of 10 after like unpacking it more. I feel like if I watched it twice, I would have been like 9 out of 10 coming into it. But our discussion kind of like changed my perspective a lot. It like really helped tie up those loose ends as well with like I didn't understand how Vincent come to be Alexia's quote unquote father figure. Like I didn't understand that dynamic. And then like the burning of the house was like something I kind of missed as well. I thought she was like burning the house with all the people in it to cover up her tracks. But in reality, it was like,
her parents.
Which is a little bit more intense than I thought. I don't know. Like, is it a 10 out of 10 for you?
It's pretty damn close, really. When I recommended this movie, I knew nothing about it. When I watched it for the first time after you left my house after the last podcast, I was worried about you. Because you've told me many times that you feel strongly for people in movies that like endure hardships, and the gross out factor of this film really made me feel like I thought you were going to hate this.
I think what makes me like the film is that it's not just a presentation of disgust and body horror. Like I literally almost cried at the end of this film. Like I was like very emotionally vulnerable, and I felt that I had never seen anything like that at the end. Like regardless of like the first hour of like just absolute disgust, like hearing the dude's fucking jaw crunch under the stool, like absolutely repulsed me. The first few minutes of body horror of like motor oil and all this shit, like we talked about it earlier going through the first few minutes of the film. Not like I wasn't about it, but by the end I was like, I don't know what I just watched, but I felt extremely moved by it. I'd never seen anything like that done in a way of such a insane plot, an insane story structure where you easily could be... You could not give a fuck. You can be completely removed from it, like write it off as a B movie. It has like damn near the same insanity level of like Sharknado.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like it's Rubber.
Yeah, it's completely removed from all logic, but it does it in a way that really is humanitarian and touching and emotional. It's one of the craziest movies I've ever seen, and I probably will never watch it again.
When it comes to scores, and this goes into like everything that you just said, it could come across as a gimmick, but the gimmick itself of the movie like means almost nothing by the end. And it drew you in with that gimmick, and now you're along for the ride. I would give like a strong 9 to 9.5 maybe. And that's not how I felt the first time I watched it. It stuck with me. It lived in my head for 2 weeks. I will certainly never forget it. So like strong 9.5, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Never again. So for me, as far as recommendations goes for the next podcast, do you have to pee?
Yeah.
Piss break.
All right. Just wanted to say this. It's my fucking birthday. Let's go. We missed it. We were too busy talking about sex in cars and motor oil.
Happy fucking birthday, man. What time is it?
It is 12:26 a.m.
Oh, my God.
On 4/20/2022, baby. I'm 23 years old. I got 4 more years till I die.
If you're a true rock legend, then you'll die in 3.
Oh, for sure.
In 4 years, I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like Sunday, when we go to see the Northmen, will be your birthday day. Like going... You'll have like a whole weekend of it. I mean, you're going to see like a comedian and this movie. We might party a little bit.
I'll probably be engaged.
You might be engaged.
Yeah, bro, let's go. Here, go. I'm hyped.
This is going to be super eventful.
Cheers to adulthood. I'm going to fucking live out adult years and fucking suffering and angst. Hell yeah. Let's go.
Now that we've gone through this like intense movie, You have the floor, man. I'm so intrigued on how you're going to follow up or how you are going to continue this. What are we doing next time on the thing?
I've really been struggling with like figuring out what I wanted to recommend. Do I want to recommend an album, a movie? I had an album picked out if I did. I had a movie picked out if I did. I was like, I can run the album route with like something I'm sure you could probably guess. Part of me wanted to do kind of a mix of album and film, which I thought would be kind of interesting and a different approach to like a podcast topic and structure. So I've only seen this once, and I thought, and I know you've seen it multiple times, but I thought it would be really fun. I feel like we're at the end of an era as far as like pandemic, and I thought it would be really interesting to go back into it a little bit and feel that kind of emotion again and kind of reflect on it a little bit. Also, juggle around cinematography and music and comedy. We're going to be watching Bo Burnham's Inside.
Oh, man. Okay. My wife is going to be so happy.
Yeah, I only saw it once, and I only got that one viewing, and I felt like I probably could have benefited from a second viewing. We've kind of brought this up recently. I think we talked about the whole gimmick of reviewing the review video loop that he did in that. Like, I remember almost nothing as far as like the comedic elements of it, and I think it would be like really good commentary. I'm not gonna say like it'll be funny for us to like rehash all the bullshit that goes on in it and like say, ha ha ha, wasn't this funny? But I think like the cinematography and the fact that it's a one-man show will be something really interesting to unpack on the podcast. We can talk about the music elements, cinematography, the comedy, the emotions that go along with it. And I think it would be kind of like a good intermediary thing for in between music and film. So
Only seen this one time.
really?
Yeah.
Your wife's
Actually,
seen it multiple times, right?
I have not seen it all the way through.
Oh, shit.
So this will be kind of new for me. And the fact that it's like so segmented will give us a chance to like comment on each individual section of the film.
We won't have to bounce around a whole lot, which will be nice. We can like break it down skit by skit.
Yeah, dude, that sounds really exciting, actually.
Yeah.
I love Bo Burnham, his style of comedy, his appreciation of music. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, man. Probably going to hop on the mics again before that. We'll probably kind of do a little impromptu Northman first impressions. It'll be kind of fun to unpack. I'm sure we'll talk about it as soon as we get out of the theater as well, but we'll definitely get some shit down on the mic. We'll talk about our experience at the film itself. After that, I'm sure we'll sign out then and come back to Bo Burnham's Inside. But until then, I'm going to sign out. Can you do me a good Hispanic favor and tell these people goodbye?
Adios.